Dr. Paul Toyne is an expert. Yes. He's an expert.
Thank you.
Yes, on environmental issues and sustainable development. He has worked in the built environment, holding senior posts as Director of Sustainability for Bovis Land Lease, WSP Global, and Balfour Beatty.
Yes.
Prior to that, he worked on climate change impact with WWF. So very much welcome, the moderator of the day, Dr. Paul Toyne.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your excellent speech. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Fantastic, and welcome everybody. Thank you, Cecilia, for your excellent opening remarks. Before we get started, there's a little bit of housekeeping we've got to do. So, to the best of our knowledge, there's no planned fire alarm. So, in the event of a fire alarm, and this is where I become a flight attendant director, if you like, you have exits to both left and right of the room, and also at the back. The muster point is in the central square, and colleagues from the conference and also from the hotel will escort you out. Okay, so hopefully that won't be an issue, but your health and well-being is important to us. It's also important, out of respect, to keep your phones to silent, if you wouldn't mind. But I do want you to do something for me, and that's to tweet. I'm not sure if I've got the slide right, but we should have an opportunity to give you the hashtag, which is hashtag CCC Summit. But we'll do that in a moment, because the other thing I need from you is your participation. So, you know, congratulations, you're pretty clever people for coming here today, because if there's one event in your calendar that will give you a real insight into what's happening in infrastructure and the challenge of reducing carbon, it's this event. You know, you won't find the information in today's conference in a textbook. You've got insight from expert speakers. So I need your participation. So that is thinking about the agenda, what we're developing, asking questions. There's going to be 2 roving mics, left and right. When we have the opportunity, it'd be really great to have your participation. And I also need your help and permission. So we all know what this stands for, yes? Yeah? Yeah. You can say hello to me and speak, yeah? So it's carbon dioxide, isn't it? Do we want carbon dioxide in our natural environment? We do, yes, it's important to us, yeah. Do we want too much? No. So when our speakers give us a little bit too much time, a little bit too much of our thoughts, I'm going to show this, yeah? And I need your permission for me to say, thank you very much, but enough is enough, please sit down. Is that okay? Yeah? If you don't want me to do that, if you want to not have your lunch, miss your coffee break, have delays going home, then that's fine. We'll stay and we'll chat forever. But if you, is that okay? Hopefully, speakers, I won't have to use this. But that is my little card. Okay, so those are the rules of the game. When we think about what we're trying to achieve today, let me see if we can have the first slide. So when CCC were designing the structure of today, we thought, what would you like to achieve from today? And we may have got this wrong. But if I were you, I'd be thinking, well, I want to learn something new. I've come here to get insight, to learn. And maybe that learning will transpire into an idea that I can take back into my organization to make my business better, whatever that idea might be. And then maybe I'm going to meet some interesting people that maybe have done this work before, or that I need to collaborate with, so I can then take my business forward. So those are 3 outcomes that would be really helpful. And actually, as we'll find today, understanding what others have been doing internationally is also important. Because, you know, wherever you are, you're not necessarily always starting from the same place. Not everything is translatable and transferable across markets. There are differences. But actually getting an international outlook about what good practice looks like in this space at the moment, I think is important. So do you agree with that? Would that be a good use of your day? If you came here to learn something new, possibly to generate some ideas, to make a friend, yeah? And to get an international outlook, would you be happy? That a good day's work? Okay, so what we're going to do at the end of the day, because we don't know whether we're going to achieve this, we're going to circle back and we're going to use some technology, and we'll tell you closer to the time about how to use the technology, and you can vote, and you can tell us whether we've done a good thing or a bad thing. So how are we going to try and do that? So the day is structured. You'll have plenty of coffee breaks, plenty of chances to make a friend, and at the back, every time we've got a break, there are 6 exhibition stands, 6 projects, all looking at different aspects of carbon and infrastructure. And if you want to see something truly stunning and pretty sort of far out there, if you go towards the left of the Winter Gardens and go out into the open air, you'll see Volvo's prototype. It's HX2, and it's an autonomous electric vehicle. It's a loader. So if you want to start thinking about what the future might look like, go and have a look. It's got all the specifications and everything there. So that's all the excitement to do in the coffee breaks at lunchtime. But the other thing that's really important is how we're structuring today. So the first session, we're going to learn a little bit where the carbon is, what's happening in Sweden politically, how you're mobilizing yourselves to create a roadmap, what's happened elsewhere, and we've got a keynote lecture from the UK. So we're talking about the political agenda there as well as the company. And then we move on to the client perspective. So what are they making of it? How are they translating this? What are they doing? What does that look like in terms of carbon? Where's the innovation, the ideas? And then we move on to the supply chain. So again, how are they responding to the policy framework, what clients are looking for? And we'll have an opportunity. Cecilia mentioned some of the winners of the Swedish Green Building Council competition, and they'll be presenting up on stage. And then finally, we'll be looking at the latest research that CCC has been funding that looks to overcome some of the barriers and challenges that we've understood are currents within the industry and the marketplace for the last 3 or 4 years. So you'll get an update on that information. And then we'll all bring it together, and some of the speakers will come back on stage, and we'll ask them for their observations and comments about what they've heard today. We'll have an opportunity for you to ask really difficult questions, really hard questions right at the end to say, what are we going to do next? How do we make this happen? So that's what we've got planned. There is a lot going on, okay? So in terms of your participation, the other thing you have to commit to is when I say, go and have a coffee, enjoy, and then I give you a time to come back, please come back on time. Because you're quite a few people, and if we have delays, this whole thing goes wrong, okay? And the goal at the end of the day is to finish and have a networking session, a nice glass of sparkling water. We've got an award ceremony, another chance to meet people and see everything in the Winter Garden. So we'd like to finish on time, and that's my commitment to you. So that's the agenda. Hopefully you've seen it before. And the important thing, and I wonder, could we do this? Are you up for it? Why don't we make this hashtag and this event the #1 event in the whole of Sweden for today? Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah? Why don't we go viral? Why don't we get on our phones now, hashtag and say we're here and we're going to solve the carbon problem and infrastructure, and get all our colleagues jealous and thinking, what's happening? Why aren't I here? Why aren't I part of this agenda? Well, of course they will be, later. But we have to start now. So can we, are we going to do this? I need to know, because what I say next is important. Who's on social media? Who's on Twitter, yeah? Yeah? There's 3 of you. No, come on, there's more of you. Okay, no, seriously, because I'm going to ask the organizers to give us an update, maybe at lunchtime. Where are we, okay? And so if there's something really significant happening in your world in Sweden, then we may not get to #1. I mean, I tried to do this in the UK recently, and the princess gave birth, and it was, so we couldn't compete. But let's see if we can do that, okay? So remember this, you've got it, yeah? Hashtag CCC Summit, yeah? So if you hear an interesting comment, get on the Twitter feed. Let's try and make this go viral. Fantastic. So, before we get started, I think it's really quite important just to understand the language and the information that we're going to be providing, so we kind of understand these things. So today you'll hear a lot about what we call the infrastructure delivery and the project lifecycle. And that really starts right from the beginning in terms of strategy. So what the company is. So if it's a Swedish Transport Administration, what is their main objective? What are they trying to do? And then it goes through different projects, and these are the things we're probably more familiar with in terms of that design stage, then into construction, and then going through into the handover, and then through commissioning, and then into operation. But it also includes the end of life, the disposal. What are we going to do around demolition or the end of the product? So it's important for those of you who are maybe new to the subject to understand what we're talking about. And in addition to that, there is some language. In all professional walks of life, we have our own words. And apologies, because obviously we're speaking in English today, so hopefully you'll understand all this. But in terms of infrastructure, that's transport, energy, water, waste, and communication sectors. Carbon, we're almost like using as a shorthand for greenhouse gas emissions. Whole life carbon is the whole carbon use throughout the whole life of the product. Yeah, so it's all right from the beginning all the way through to that disposal end of life. Capital cost is the carbon associated with the actual creation and refurbishment and end of life treatment of that asset, of that infrastructure. And that's where you will find, and we talk a lot about the word embodied carbon. That's where that embodied carbon is. And then the operational cost is the cost of operating that asset to deliver whatever service it is and the maintenance of it. And then in addition to that, we've sometimes used the word user carbon, and that's the carbon associated with the user's utilization of that infrastructure. So hopefully for those of you in the room who may not be familiar with all those terms, that kind of little lexicon is helpful for you. So I think at this stage we can now make a start with the conference. And to do that, we're going to run a short film first.